Xenoblade Chronicles X, that elusive game that many people have recently gone into Xenoblade Chronicles want to play so badly if it wasn't wasting away on the realms of the Wii U. But funnily enough, Xenoblade Chronicles X is one of my favorite Xenoblade Chronicles games, and one of my favorite games of all time. I love the game to death, and I hold it in extremely high regard. And last week I talked about the likelihood of a Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, or remaster, or remake, and stuff along those lines for the Switch too. But this week I want to just sit back, relax, drink some liquid H2O, as we talk about the possibility, what I would like to see from a Xenoblade Chronicles X 2. Now, to my understanding, don't quote me on this, apparently I missed out on an interview back in the Xenoblade 2 days, where they mentioned they want to do Xenoblade X 2 after 3, and well, 3's already come and gone, people, so like, maybe there's a chance here. I would still like to see Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition or remaster or remake or whatever first, because I feel too many people in the Xenoblade fandom just don't have that familiarity with X because of just how much 2 and 3 blew up. Putting that aside though, let's say Xenoblade Chronicles X2 does happen, and let's say that it exists. What would I like to see from it? From someone who has played all the Xenoblade games, and has played Xenoblade Chronicles X, and loves all of them to death, what do I want to see out of X2? Well, first and foremost, I want them to remember that it's X, not the numbered games. I think a lot of the charm of Xenoblade Chronicles X was that they were so willing to deviate from that formula established in Xenoblade 1 that they followed up for 2 and 3 and iterated on. Xenoblade X plays a lot differently in a lot of ways. It's far more gameplay oriented and far more side quest oriented in terms of developing and furthering the story of the world and its cast of characters. A lot more emphasis on going out into the world of Mira, exploring it, micromanaging your map and all those nodes and all that, and uncovering the world of Mira itself being one of the primary aspects of the game. The entire focus of Xenoblade Chronicles X is this race against the clock to find this device called the Lifehold before the evil aliens manage to get a hold of it, because if they manage to destroy it, then humanity is wiped out, and if humanity doesn't reach the Lifehold quick enough, then again, humanity's annihilated, as all of their lives hang in the balance of being able to restore the battery of the Lifehold. There's a lot of development and a lot of plot twists in Xenoblade X in regards to the plot. I don't want to necessarily be too spoiler heavy here. There'll be some light spoilers and all that, but I don't want to just like completely spoil the plot of Xenoblade X, though there may be some gameplay or some cutscenes from later in the game in this video. So Xenoblade X, right? It's ending. And I know I just said no spoilers. I swear to God, this isn't really that big of a spoiler. The ending of Xenoblade X is a cliffhanger. I won't go into necessarily the exact details outside of they're really setting up the idea that the follow-up to X would really go into the world of Mira itself and extrapolate and expand on what Mira is. Because there's like that one famous meme that goes around about Xenoblade X that actually comes from the ending. There's something weird about this world. There's something different about Mira. It's not normal. It's not what you think it is. There's something about this planet, this world that humanity has found itself on, partnering with all these different aliens. There's something weird about Mira, and I felt that it was painfully obvious that a follow-up to the story of Xenoblade X was absolutely planned, because they set up so many different plot angles and points and just storylines that they could easily pick back up again in Xenoblade X 2. Because like I said, the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles X is far and away the biggest cliffhanger in the series. And the reason a lot of people don't like the ending of Xenoblade X is simply because we never had a follow-up to it. Because it felt like it was a part 1 of a story, like a chapter 1 that we never got a chapter 2 for. They did all this in Xenoblade X, in both the good and the bad, to develop and flesh out the cast of characters, the world, and possible storylines, and they never gave you, like, finite conclusion to anything. It was all set up in a lot of ways. There was a few bits of conclusiveness to it, but it was mainly setting up to expand and feel like Xenoblade X would become this larger-than-life series that over the course of multiple games would unravel and really shine. But it's almost been 10 years at this point, and we haven't gotten a follow-up. So what do I want to see out of Xenoblade X 2? We'll get to the gameplay in a little bit, but out of the story and the themes, I want them to really dive into the characters of Elma, who in my opinion, and this is worthy of another video, is becoming one of my favorite video game, or at least Xenoblade characters. Like, I think she's second only to Rex for me at this point. Like, the more and more I think about her storyline and, like, where it can go and the potential that it has, the more and more I appreciate what she does as a character. I think the character of Elma has to be pivotal and central to the plot going forward. There's far too many questions involving her as a character, and they're just, like, really, like, at the tip of the iceberg in regards to her character and where it can go. I also really want them to expand on the world of Mira, but I want them to give us more than the zones we just have. I feel like you can expand on Mira, give us a new continent or stuff like that, with more zones, just lean into how alien the world of Mira really felt in a lot of ways. Exploring those zones, no matter how many times I do it, I always find something new to appreciate out of it. The world is unironically and unabashedly so one of my favorite worlds in all of gaming, because it's so unique visually and aesthetically, and when combined with the music headed up by Sawano, who I absolutely think you should get back if you can somehow manage to do that after Attack on Titan, like, blowing up as it did. Get Sawano back for that soundtrack, because there's something about Xenoblade Chronicles X's soundtrack that pairs so perfectly with the themes and the aesthetics of Xenoblade Chronicles X. This sense of adventure, this high-octane adventure of humanity's struggle for survival in this new alien world after fleeing an alien conflict that happened to get Earth caught in the crossfires. Or so we think. Having Sawano's just over-the-top, amazing, high-octane rock and roll to metal soundtrack intermixed with hip-hop and rap feelings every now and then. But then it also is not afraid to go slow, have these piano arrangements, have these slower songs, or slower versions of songs like The Way. And like Xenoblade Chronicles X, it's a mashup of multiple different things and aesthetics and feels to it and emotions, all bundled up into one cohesive whole, and it all feels like Xenoblade Chronicles X. One of my favorite things to listen to recently has just been piano arrangements of Xenoblade X songs, because they're so good. When Xenoblade Chronicles X wants to slow down and just let the world breathe and let the characters breathe, it can have some really compelling storylines and themes and messages. Was it told the best in Xenoblade X? No, not by a long shot. That's another aspect I think Xenoblade X could at least learn from the numbered games in some way or form, is storytelling. I don't think Xenoblade X had its greatest strengths in storytelling. I think the plot was really good. I think the story itself is really good and compelling and engrossing. The storytelling leaves a lot to be desired in a lot of ways. Too often does it rely on static characters just standing around doing no animation, as the music is far too loud so you can barely hear the dialogue, because there's no audio slider for the music. I know, right? But when Xenoblade X is in your face and has those cinematics or those cutscenes, they're really good. They're really compelling. Like Chapter 11, when Elma's overlooking the villain up to that point, and you're wondering, what is she going to do in this moment? Again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it was a really good cutscene. And it made that villain one of my favorites in all of Xenoblade, and that's saying something when this series is known for its compelling and engrossing villains. Especially when the other games are far better at storytelling than X. But that goes to show you that stories can be multidimensional. They don't just have to rely on any one form or fashion or traditional concept. They can be told and relayed and consumed in different ways that affect you in different ways as well. I don't want to see Xenoblade X2 just try and be Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 again. I want it to feel like X, but I want it to feel like a refinement of Xenoblade X. Because X is far from a perfect game. Its UI is abysmal, it's far too staticky in terms of the storytelling too often, the first half is extremely poorly paced in terms of story and pacing. The second half is way better, but that first half can be a bit of a slog. The game is far too grindy, and early game combat is way too slow, though that tends to be a similar issue and critique that Xenoblade has on the whole. But these are all fixable and workable avenues that don't have to undermine the core experience of Xenoblade X, because that core experience of Xenoblade X is so grossly compelling, so fun and engaging, so mesmerizing that the strengths outweigh the cons. But if you're gonna go for Xenoblade X2, you might as well minimize those cons and build on those strengths. Have an even bigger world, a more engrossing world. One of Xenoblade X's strengths was the fact that it was so diverse in its aesthetics. Lean into that. Have different kinds of zones. Have a snow zone, why not? Have even taller, higher peaks with weirder monster design that gets added as the game goes on. Lean into those ideas of those giant boss fights where you would just pilot your group of skells with you and your party as you fought this like mountain-sized giant behemoth of a mech flying over a zone in this giant sky battle. Lean into stuff like that because it's cool. And because of the mechanics of Xenoblade X, you can not just have it be cool, you can also have it be mechanically engaging as you target different elements and aspects and parts of the body to minimize or even eliminate the mechanics that the boss can do. Lean into that idea. Limb manipulation, limb destroyment, and dismemberment is a really cool aspect of Xenoblade X that I think should be expanded on and developed. It shouldn't just be thrown to the wayside because Xenoblade 2 and 3 didn't happen to have it. It's part of the reason that makes Xenoblade X so special, is that you can modify what you're fighting as the game goes on, and as the fight goes on and progresses. You can uncover a weak point or something like that, target different parts of the body to acquire different loot when the boss dies. Lean into stuff like that, but make it more mechanically interesting by making enemy attacks far more readable, transparent, and telegraphed, so that you can target the part of the body that you think is the biggest threat, but you don't want to just make it so, oh, this enemy, you destroy the horn, whatever. Make it so you can go in different routes that changes and augments the fight depending upon what route you go in terms of what part of the body you target. Lean into the class system. The class system of Xenoblade X is the best in the franchise, in my opinion. The idea is that each class has a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, and as you progress your class, you get essentially different titles of that class, and you go along as like a pseudo tree of class progression. Once you max out that branch, you unlock those weapons to be able to be utilized on whatever class you pick from then on. So the idea is you go down the tree in all the different branches to unlock all the weapons, so you can like mix and match the weapons that have their own different skills and unique aspects and passives with each other to make your own cool fun build over time. Expand on that. Build on that core concept. Shore up the early game to be more fun and mechanically interesting, to give you more buttons to press early on, but make up for that by giving you way more options later on in the game, and way more things to mix and match. Let me go for a full like melee build or whatever, or double range build. Give me long swords, give me axes, give me spears, give me halberds, give me daggers, give me swords, give me dual swords, give me long swords, the lightsabers, sabers, give me fist weapons. Give me dual rings. We have so many weapons now that are inherent to the Xenoblade franchise over all these games. Give them their own style and flair in Xenoblade X. Don't be afraid to go too hard into any idea. Expand on it. Flesh it out. Expand on the multiplayer side of things as well. You know how cool that is? Or at least was back in the day, to be able to go and find a giant, like, hunt request. And, like, in the vein of Monster Hunter, be able to go, like, gather a squad or go join a raid or something to go fight this giant behemoth of a boss in the open world with everyone else in multiplayer. It's cool as hell! And funnily enough, the multiplayer incentivizes playing in the game because it gives you access to rewards you wouldn't ordinarily have access to, or that would be way more grindy by themselves. I imagine Xenoblade X2 would be on the Switch too, hopefully it's better online, but you know what I mean. You pair better online functionality with a better online system in Xenoblade X2 that could be really fun and replayable. Do what X did, where you could recruit other players like main characters as party members that you can utilize in your own playthrough. That's a really cool idea. Expand on that. Hell yeah. If you ever played a game like Honkai Star Rail, if one of your friends or someone else uses your character that you have up there for support that they can utilize in certain fights, you get like money in return, like in-game currency. Do the same here. It's a really cool idea, a really good concept that could be expanded on. Take the existing world of Mir, flesh it out, give it more love and tenderness and care, and give us more new places to explore. Change the world as we go on. That's one of the best aspects of Xenoblade X, was that the world felt like it shifted and changed over the course of the game, as more monsters got added in different chapters, and also as you unlocked the Skell, and then eventually its flight component. So that changed the way you maneuvered and navigated around the world. Don't be afraid, like so many other RPGs and open world games are out there. They are afraid to change the world. Don't be. Lean into it, because a changing world and the way you tackle the world and view it and having that change over the course of the playthrough is one of the best aspects of Xenoblade X. With the skill system, but now you can have it so I can augment the skill. Let me change the way the ground form operates and give me incentivizing reasons to still want to use ground form every now and then, as opposed to just flying around the place. Give me a jukebox for the barracks. Expand on barracks customization. Let me change the music in the barracks to whatever song. Let me go out and collect songs in the world by doing quests or finding loot and stuff like that, or farming rare mobs. Stuff like that. Lean into these elements of the customization and the gameplay loop, and what made Xenoblade X so cool and compelling and different to the rest of the Xenoblade games. The Xenoblade X open world formula is one of the best out there, and I've talked about before how games later on in the open world genre, in some form or fashion, at least feel like they took inspiration from Xenoblade X. Like Breath of the Wild, Monolith worked on that one. Even Tears of the Kingdom, or even games like Elden Ring to some degree. Open world games work when the open world is the content of the game, and not just a glorified loading screen as you go mindlessly from point A to point B for the actual content. Let the world of Mirror breathe and speak for itself and to be the content of the game, not a sideshow, not a distraction. Because in Xenoblade X, the world of Mirror was the game. It was the focal piece of the content and the story. And in Xenoblade X2, you can expand on that, have Mirror take even more of a center stage in terms of the story, the themes, and the actual motifs going on, but also mechanically speaking. Don't be afraid to have the world change over the course of your playthrough, to have player choice matter, as it does in Xenoblade X. Albeit in the quest lines and for like affinity and stuff like that, but also allow it to change the world. Why not? Because you're afraid that not everyone will have the same experience on their first playthrough? Fuck it. Seriously. Lean into those elements. Some of the biggest games out there nowadays are the ones that aren't afraid to allow the player to have the consequences of their own actions matter, to allow their own playthrough to feel like their own playthrough. And in Xenoblade X, because of the skill system, because of the customization in your class system, they were able to feel that in some form or fashion, alongside the choices you made in the side quests. Allow my playthrough in Xenoblade X2 to feel unique and different. Lean into those elements. That's what I really want to see them do. Remind themselves that this is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Lean into those elements, what made the original so good, and show up its weaknesses, and change what those weaknesses were. Turn them into strengths. And with that, I think I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.